Okay, so with Gareth Southgate having resigned as England manager earlier this week, the FA is obviously looking for a successor. Now they've put a time frame on which gives them a bit of wiggle room for the next couple of weeks to have talks with potential candidates. There's the advert that's been posted by the FA runs until August the 2nd, so the applications need to be put in by August the 2nd. So we will expect an announcement, I would say, first, maybe second week of August for the successful candidate. Now, I looked on the Guardian website. They gave a list of only 6 managers. I think there are more candidates out there. I've gone with a list of 7, 4 foreign, 3 English, that I think could potentially be Gareth Southgate's successor. We're going to start with the English managers that the FA are strongly considering, that have been rumoured to be in the shortlist for the FA. We're going to start with Eddie Howe. Now, Eddie Howe is currently obviously under contract at Newcastle. Last season was a little bit disappointing, but he did manage to get them back to Champions League qualification a couple of years ago. They played in the Champions League under Eddie Howe. Steep learning curve for that squad, but he transformed their fortunes around a little bit. Last season was a bit disappointing. However, Anthony Gordon obviously did play at the Euros and has obviously shone under Eddie Howe. There has been changes in the Newcastle boardroom, so he could potentially be lured away. Amanda Staveley is no longer a director at Newcastle United, so there has been boardroom changes at Newcastle which could impact Eddie Howe's decision and potentially his future going forward. Now, his career at Bournemouth, his time at Bournemouth as a manager, he did very, very well. He had that brief spell at Burnley, which was disastrous, went back to Bournemouth, got them to the Premier League for the first time. His ending at Bournemouth, okay, they didn't quite adapt to the return to play following the pandemic shutdown. They got relegated. He was out of work for a little while, ended up at Newcastle replacing Steve Bruce, did turn things around, got the team playing better, got players playing better, got them into the Champions League, although last season was a bit of a step back. In saying that, he's done a pretty decent job at Newcastle. People do remember his spell at Burnley being a bit disappointing, but with Bournemouth he took them from the lower levels of English football to the Premier League. So that has to be bared in mind. He's very good at developing players. And he's young, he's driven, and I think he fits the mould of a Southgate replacement. He does play some pretty good football as well at times, given the right circumstances. Graham Potter is another one that's hot on the FA shortlist, according to reports. Now, he obviously last coached at Chelsea. That ended disastrously. But then you look at his spell at Brighton and his time in Sweden, he did rather well. The Chelsea experiment did not work, and that is not just Graham Potter's fault. That's a lot of issues behind the scenes with Chelsea. There's a few ex-Chelsea managers on the shortlist that the media are reporting. He's the first one on the shortlist. Now, yeah, people will look at his time at Chelsea and go, it was disastrous. But here's the thing. Wrong manager, wrong club. He did very well at Brighton. He did very well in Sweden. And again, very good at developing young players. That is something that has been noted of Graham Potter's time in management. But will that Chelsea fiasco, will that count against him? It counted against a certain Brian Clough with Leeds United the 44 days and that fiasco, and the FA didn't go with Brian Clough. They went with someone else. Brian Clough then went on to have great success with Nottingham Forest, quite famously. So you could argue, the Chelsea experiment didn't work very well, disastrous, he got sacked, but he could have great success at another club, and the FA could be left looking red-faced yet again. They've done this in the past. Now, Lee Carsley is a name that keeps coming up because he's currently working with the under-21s. He's had a very good... he currently works within the FA, as I say. He's been very, very good with the youth setup. He's done very, very well there, developed a lot of young players. And you look at the average age of the England squad right now that went to the Euros, a lot of young players that have come through that youth system that Lee Carsley coaches. That'll be the safe bet for the FA is promote from within. They did that with Southgate. They could do that again with Lee Carsley. It could really reward them, although there's a lot of people not overly keen on Lee Carsley because he's the FA yes man, basically, because he's already within the structures within St George's Park. In saying that, he's done very well with the youth players, really developed them. They've got onto the national side and obviously have got 2 finals. So Lee Carsley, I think, would be the easiest appointment to make simply because he's already within the FA organisation. It's called promotion from within. The foreign managers they list, there are 2 ex-Chelsea managers on the list. One of the favourites is Mauricio Pochettino. Obviously, his spell at Chelsea was disastrous as well. Didn't go particularly well. Although towards the end of his tenure, he had started to turn things around. And again, there were a fair few Chelsea players that have been in Gareth Southgate's squads over the last couple of years. You could argue Cole Palmer has really developed under Pochettino really, really well. He had a very good tournament. He was one of the outstanding stars for England at an otherwise underwhelming tournament, even though England made the final. But his time at Chelsea, people will look at that, and his failure to win anything at Tottenham, people will look at that. Now, his limited success at PSG, people will look at that as well. I think Pochettino should not be discounted. International football may suit his management style a little bit more than club football. You just don't know. This is where all these managers, apart from, I think even Lee Carsley's coached at club level, all these managers on the shortlist have all had club experience. Pochettino, again, didn't work well at Chelsea. He is out of work. They don't have to pay a get-out clause, should I say, to a club. Same with Graham Potter, out of work. Again, don't have to pay a buyout clause to a club. And he's still getting paid by Chelsea as well, £200,000 a month by Chelsea. They're still paying him. It's ridiculous. So Pochettino and Potter not attached to a club. Same with Thomas Tuchel, yet another ex-Chelsea manager. Again, available. Bayern Munich let him go. He has won trophies, but again, he's never coached at international level. He is a club manager. Maybe a short, intense spell with the national side. It could suit his style of coaching with the players available. And again, as I say, a lot of the players in the England squad at some point have been coached by Tuchel. Yes, he has got links with clubs where players currently play, and the structures that he put in place at Dortmund and at Chelsea, some of those players who've played in Germany and for Chelsea, who are currently in and around the England squad, Tuchel, it could work. It could work. He coached Harry Kane, for example, at Bayern, and Harry Kane had a very, very good season last season at Bayern. Yeah, Tuchel's out of a job. So, again, the FA doesn't have to pay a break clause in a contract to a football club. That will actually save them some money. It will. So, and then we get to Jurgen Klopp. He's just left Liverpool. He says he wants a break from football. I think Jurgen Klopp, depending on if they do negotiate with him, and if he is available, and if he decides to say yes, I'm happy to go into international management at this stage. He has hinted that he wouldn't mind coaching an international side, most likely Germany or England. He has stated that he does live still in England. He's bought into the Merseyside community, especially, but he still lives here. He set down roots here. And he is actually quite popular with the media as well. He has a very good relationship with the media, whereas Tuchel was a bit frosty with the media. Eddie Howe and Graham Potter have a good relationship with the media to a certain extent, although Potter in his time as Chelsea, that did start to fray. Pochettino had a decent relationship with the media, but a frosty relationship at times. Klopp seems a bit more relaxed and amenable. He can be quite intense, but his relationship with the media on the whole has actually been pretty good. Other England managers in the past have not had a great media relationship with the press, and that is something the FA will be looking at, is how the press conferences go, how the relationship works, the transparency and the openness of the squad that Southgate did bring in. He allowed more media access. He improved the relationship between the players and the media that was struggling pre-2016. So Jurgen Klopp is on the list. I think he's an outside bet because he did state when he left Liverpool he needed a break from the intensity of coaching. You could see as time went on at Liverpool, he was starting to get a bit more frustrated with them in media press conferences. And there is a point where you've been that intense in a job, you do need a break. Now, they were the 6 candidates, the 6 favourites listed on the Guardian website. Now, the FA will probably lean more to an English coach than a foreign coach because of the Capello experiment. I've always said Sven was actually pretty decent as England manager, as a foreign manager, but the Capello experiment a decade or so ago, that was a disaster. Let's all be clear on that. The 2010 World Cup was not great, and his departure just weeks before the Euros in 2012 and how that was handled didn't go down well either. He didn't have a great relationship with the English media. He didn't speak very good English anyway, and it was a frosty relationship. There was a divided dressing room. There was a lot of issues. But managers like Klopp and Tuchel and Pochettino, they have coached here in England. Tuchel and Klopp have had good success here in England, winning a lot of silverware, and they would have a lot of good relationships with players that are currently part of the England setup. Now, the question mark I put down is another foreign manager. He is still under contract, much like Eddie Howe. All the other managers apart from Lee Carsley are off contract, and therefore it would cost the FA less money to lure them away from a club. Lee Carsley is obviously within the FA right now with the youth setup. Pep Guardiola, he's in the last year of his contract at Man City. He has made no secret of the fact that he would not mind getting into international management. He's made no secret of that, and there is a big Man City feel to Gareth Southgate's squads over the last few years. He's been very, very successful at Man City, and yes, there's all those off-field dramas with the FA charges and the investigation into their financial dealings. They've had issues with their youth policy, and again, UEFA and the FA have investigated them over that. So with Man City, and that's what's happening off the field, maybe Pep Guardiola wants out of that situation. He's faced a lot of difficult questions in the media about what's happening off the field, but he's a proven winner, isn't he? He's a proven winner. In fact, all of these managers, apart from Eddie Howe, have actually won silverware various parts of their career, either in Europe or here in England. So Pep Guardiola is an outside bet because he's under contract, but there are hints that he could be willing to either leave his contract early or take over in 2025 if an interim is put in for a year, which could be Lee Carsley. They could go down the Lee Carsley route for a year, then pick up Guardiola in 12 months' time. So that's a quick look at some of the successors that could replace Gareth Southgate. I think there's a few others out there as well that could be throwing a curveball, thinking outside the box. I was having discussions with some of my work colleagues yesterday. Could Jurgen Klinsmann be a good shout? I think that could be a out the box thinking. For example, Jurgen Klinsmann, fluent in English, did very well at Germany and with the US, and rebuilt the structures with the German national side following a very, very disappointing Euro 2000. His philosophy, even though they made the World Cup final in 2002, his philosophy was completely rebuild the relationship between the federation, the German FA, and the clubs, and basically fix the youth policy and the style of play. It paid dividends for Germany in the long term. He built a platform very similar to what Southgate has done, where they really looked at the youth system, improving the relationship between the clubs and the national side, getting rid of that club country debate, unifying the dressing room. Eventually, it did bring Germany success in 2014. He laid the platform. He did lay the platform. When he moved on to the US, Jogi Löw came in. So Jurgen Klinsmann would not be a bad shout. It's just whether he's willing to relocate from the US where he lives. But he's had a very good managerial career. He's had a very good media career as well. He's very knowledgeable. And of course he did play in England, so he understands the English club culture as well, and the English playing culture. So Jurgen Klinsmann may not be a bad shout. He's quite popular. It's not just with Tottenham fans, but with English football fans. He's actually quite a popular figure in regards to fandom in England, potentially. But then I was having the discussion, what about Stuart Pearce, getting him back in? If it is an interim role for a year, get Stuart Pearce in. He had an interim role before, admittedly for one game. But again, he's coached in this country. He's obviously played for the national side, understands the complexities of the club country battle that you have in the dressing room. And he also did work with the FA in the youth levels as well before Southgate came along. So I wouldn't think that's too off base to look at potentially Stuart Pearce bringing him back in. If it is a short-term replacement, if they want to go Guardiola, which has been reported that they are highly interested in getting Guardiola from next year, allowing him to run down his contract, getting in Stuart Pearce for a year, it's not a bad shout. But that's my personal opinion of two, outside the box kind of options. Again, Klinsmann hasn't coached for a while. Stuart Pearce, okay, Nottingham Forest when he returned didn't go particularly well, but he had a decent spell at Man City earlier on in his managerial career. He has worked with the FA before. He has worked in the youth development structures, and he's a passionate guy. He will expect 110% from his players, energy, and a bit. And while he was a defensive player, he was a pretty good fullback in his time, and showed passion. Euro 96, Italia 90, he showed that passion where other players were lacking a bit of emotion and a bit of energy. He really, that famous penalty against Spain in Euro 96, that was Psycho Pearce coming out. Hard player, but a fair player. Very good tactical knowledge. That's a good shout. But that's a quick look at the potential successors to Gareth Southgate. Who else do you think could be a potential successor to Gareth Southgate outside the few that I've looked at, the 6 that have been listed by The Guardian, plus a few other options that I've discussed? Place your thoughts in the comments section below. But from me for now, thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts in the comments section below. I'll have some more content for you guys very, very soon.